session. So, good morning everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Thank you so much for taking time out today, especially since it's a holiday here in the Philippines, to join us in this morning's Philippine American Academy of Science and Engineering Fireside Chat that seeks to celebrate the youth and women in STEM here in the Philippines. My name is Chona Camille Vinci Cruz Abiledo, but you can just call me Chona. I am the organizer for today's event and also your host for this morning. Now, today's holiday, appropriately enough, is about the Edsa revolution. The Edsa period was a subtle turning point in the feminist movement here in the Philippines. Now, when it comes to feminism, people usually look up to accessible female icons. And back in the 1980s, where possibly some of our speakers haven't been born yet, the most prominent and accessible icon was President Cory Aquino. The presidency and leadership of Cory Aquino was far from perfect. But as the first woman president in the Philippines, it is important to note that she was a powerful symbol that women can be leaders too. Though Aquino never proclaimed herself a feminist, she came into power with the support of feminist organizations. Many women's organizations either started or were revived during the 1980s, and women's issues were discussed and led by a more empowered women's movement. On March 8, 1986, International Women's Day, which we still celebrate up to today, around 10,000 women marched in Manila to affirm Aquino's victory as a victory for the women's movement in the Philippines. But we are far from achieving true gender equality in our country. And it is events like this, the one we're having today, where we hope to inch closer to our goal. And for today, specifically in the field of STEM. Now, why focus on STEM? Well, according to the World Economic Forum, female students and employees are underrepresented in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the STEM fields. In schools, most female students would rather pursue the arts rather than subjects like mathematics and engineering. This phenomenon is usually described as the STEM gender gap. And in Southeast Asia, only 30% of STEM professionals are women. This inconsistency and divergence emanate largely from gender stereotypes, male dominated cultures, lack of role models, which we hope to help solve today, and a little bit of math anxiety. I'm a little bit guilty of that too. Now, despite female students actually achieving results on par with those of their male counterparts, many girls propel away from the science and engineering courses at the undergraduate level. And we have to learn to defeat these STEM biases. Now, more than just allowing for greater representation of women in the field of STEM, diversity benefits research in general. A more representative workforce leads to more exhaustive questions being asked and problems being targeted from a huge variety of angles. By encouraging inclusivity and supporting girls who want to pursue STEM, we open pathways and opportunities for greater innovation and scientific success in the long run. Beyond diversity, women are important to the future of innovation because as the world evolves, we still find that many of the inventions that we have today are catered to and designed for men, which ultimately leaves a significant portion of society's needs out of consideration. And this is where the role of women comes in. They play an important role in ensuring that the needs of all in society are represented. Without the presence of women in the field of STEM, innovation will be limited and exclude half of the population. We need more women in STEM to further innovation and better represent the needs of society. And what better way to increase the number of amazing women in STEM today than to showcase some of the amazing women in the Filipino STEM fields, starting with our young STEM representatives. Our first speaker for today is Miss Nicfreda Marie Guadalupe M. Gomez. Her nickname is Nikki, and she is the appointed team captain of Lawin PH, who was one of the global nominees for the NASA International Space Apps Challenge 2020 Awards. Amazing. They created an app called Lawin, which aims to serve as an online library for the students at home during online classes with regards to NASA Earth datasets. She's currently an undergraduate student studying Bachelor of Science in Astronomy, major in Astrophysics at Rizal Technological University, Boni Campus. Nikki is a Cebuana. She was born in Cebu City, but grew up in Mindanao and decided to pursue her college studies in Manila. She is currently a volunteer with several organizations for women and the youth in STEM, such as WeTech or Women in Technology Incorporated, CNCA PH, and SEDS PH or Students for the Exploration and Development of Space in the Philippines. She's also an aspiring space lawyer. So without further ado, I give the floor to Nikki. Let's give her a warm digital round of applause.
Yay. Hi, everyone. Am I audible, Doc?
Yes, you are.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Doc. It's really an honor to be here. Like, this is my first time actually to talk like without being recorded or somewhat like that. So, yeah, let's do this. So, before I start off, again, I am Nick Freda Marie Guadalupe Gomez, but you can call me Nikki for short. And yes, I am currently studying Bachelor of Science in Astronomy, major in Astrophysics at Rizal Technological University. So why did I pursue STEM? Um, just like what, just like everyone, I mean, when I was a kid, when I didn't know the existence of Marie Curie and Einstein yet, I mean, for me, like my mom is really such a role model for me. Like I I always look forward to her and yeah, I'm always mesmerized every time how she speaks so well and answers all my questions like may it be what's, why's and how's so effortlessly and eloquently. Little did I know that my mom was my walking dictionary and encyclopedia way back then. So aside from learning and my experiences from school, she was the first one who introduced me the wonders of science that became my passion, which led me to travel down the scientific pathway. So I pursued astronomy because I am deeply drawn to the cosmos, and I used to imagine myself on the deck of Enterprise exploring strange new worlds. Well, it's just so amazing how everything about outer space made me forget and escape the reality for a while. Even seeing Hubble snaps and galaxy snaps fill me with warmth. Also, I'm interested about the youngest stars of our Milky Way galaxy. The reason why I pursued astrophysics, like we're doing several research, just like estimating the distance between globular clusters and, of course, our Milky Way galaxy. Also, I really wanted to study how the adults, I mean, how they change as young stars on their way to becoming adult stars, like the sun in our planet Earth. Um, I think right now, as a university student, I can um, say that what career exactly I'm up to, but I'm really sure that my future is science. Like I wanted to change the world through science and technology. So, and also about being I've I just recently found out about space lawyers, like something like that. So since Doc Chana wanted to really hear about that, um I think one of the interesting things why I really wanted to study about space law, because from what I've read in the new UN sets for a variety of other issues, um, falling under the auspices of space law, they kind of include the preservation of the space and Earth environment, liability for damages caused by space objects, the settlement of disputes, also the rescue of astronauts, the sharing of information about potential dangers in outer space, the use of space-related technology. Um, I know space law might sound like the stuff of science fiction, but it's really real. All right. I mean, I think it can be described as the body of law governing space-related activities. Space law, much like general international law, comprises a variety of international agreements, treaties, conventions, and United Nations General Assembly resolutions, as well as rules and regulations of international organizations. And and yeah, also a quick background about it. It comprises 5 international treaties and 5 sets of principles on space-related activities. Um, what else do I wanted to share? Um, so for me, as a student who's studying astronomy degree here in the Philippines, I think the most fulfilling aspect in doing such research related to astrophysics or astronomy is that it serves as an evidence or basis that the astronomy here in our country is progressing. I mean, it proves that Philippines has the potential to offer such degree like astronomy or space education, because basically we only have two schools in two school institutions here offering an astronomy degree. I mean, the university I attend to, which is Rizal Technological University, and the New Era University. And I can't wait that there are more schools will be able to have it in the future, especially now that we have already our own space agency, the Philippine Space Agency. Um, I think that's all what I'm going to share, Doc. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for that also, Nikki. I'm glad that, I'm glad to meet a fellow Trekkie. Live long and prosper kasi feeling ko medyo na-endanger na ang Trekkie over Star Wars. But I love how you shared that. And thank you so much for sharing information about what space lawyers are. And usually the science fiction of the past is the science future. So thank you for that, Nikki. And we'd love to hear more from you later during the Q&A.
Thank
So,
you so much, Doc.
yes, thank you also, Nikki. So from here, we move forward to the field of science education with our next expert or our next young STEM representative, Miss Noah Shen de Chavez Dating Ginoo. Known as Shen or Noah, she finished her undergraduate degree of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in biology last 2018 in the La Salle University. And she is currently studying Master of Science in Biology in the same university. Her field of interest and research is about parasitology. She is a highly flexible STEM educator who has taught students from grade school to junior high to senior high school to college to students having special needs, with subjects ranging from earth science, physical science, biology, and chemistry. Currently, she is a senior high school faculty under the Integrated Basic Education Department of Dr. Rosario L. Olivares School, as well as a part-time college faculty under the College of Criminology, Arts, Sciences, and Education at Olivares College, Parañaque. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Shen Dating Ginoo. Let's give her a warm digital round of applause.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity as well. And thank you, Doc Shona, for that introduction. So let me now share my screen for today or for my presentation. Can you now see a white background with grids? Something like
Yes, we can.
okay. Ayan. Because this is also a little bit of, I always say this or I always present this before my class session. And some of the audience here are my students then. So hi there. Hi, thank you so much for waking up early. Alam ko na pagod at puyat kayo sa mga requirements and submissions, but you still give your time for this session for today. So they are familiar with this segment of mine. So I always ask them, as a teacher, how are you feeling? So these are the different emojis or colors of their feelings: red, blue, gray, green, and pink. So I just want to know from them. Chat in the chat box the color of your feelings for today. Ayan, now I can see one of my students. She says pink. All right. And I saw Doc Chona also pink. And also Miss Madrona pink. And Miss Veron also pink. Doc Aviso pink. Wow, I can see a lot of pinks here. Miss Gomez is also pink. Miss Luyon is pink. Doc Lim is pink. And also Sir Carl, pink, and Miss Karen is also pink. All right. So usually I have this segment every before class session because I just want to ask them, especially in their mental health state, because we do all know that especially in the midst of the pandemic that we also need to take care of our mental health, and I always remind my students with that. Okay. Now, I will also do a little bit of a short, talk about me. So that's my, a title of my segment. So it's a continuous journey of a science teacher. So yes, that's my full name. And also the LPT at the last part of my name, it means licensed professional teacher. So eventually I became a licensed professional teacher since 2018. So until now, I'm still in the venturing or I'm still in my adventure towards, what will be my future endeavors in the long run. All right. Now, let me start with this. What do I do? What do I do? And I put it in an acronym of STEM. Ayan. So maybe you're already wondering what could Miss Shen or Ma'am Shen will be talking about if she is it pertaining to the what do I do segment. Let's start with the letter S. Eventually, I am a science enthusiast. So I'm really excited, quote unquote excited when when there is an instance that we talk about science. I mean, to be frankly honest, I am not that good. I mean, I'm not that really smart. I'm just an average student when I was in college. But you have that striving feeling eh. Yung nagsusumikap ka sa mga bagay-bagay. That's why you are also succeeding. Because not all the time na sa mga topics na natutunan natin that you can get it right away and then that's it, right? But no, I am a student na kailangan ko talaga siyang intindihin pa bago ko masabi din or based on my own understanding. So that also led me to the letter T. So I am a teacher. I am a professional teacher since 2018. So it's been like 2018, 2019, 2020. So almost 4 years in the making of being a teacher. So it's really a roller coaster ride of being a teacher. But then again, at the end of the day, it's always fulfilling to teach the young minds and eventually to touch their hearts and to hopefully transform their lives as they go on with their adventure in life. Okay, now with the letter E, don't get me wrong about this word. I am an entertainer. No, entertainer means I am also in line with the art side of the STEM. Because I remember during the time as well that I had the decision making feels na should I pursue biology or in the field of music, because music is also my passion, and as well as parang what will be my life if I pursue that. But then again, as sabi ko, sige, I'll just pursue bio because one can benefit from the another. That's why until today, so yeah, if there will be some instances that I entertain people, like singing in front of the people, even though right now in the pandemic it's usually held virtually. So I just record and then there it's already presented. So that's the feeling of the entertainer. And I guess being a teacher as well, that's also a role of being a flexible educator, since you are also unleashing your talent na hindi natin agad nakikita way back. So I think that's also the feels of being an entertainer. Ayan. So also there might be an instance that I bring, a little bit of interest of music pa din when so my students knows this because sometimes I'm just humming na lang some of the tunes of the lesson so that they can get it right away. So parang I'm also, letting them love more of the field of STEM even though we know that it's a little bit hard. Okay, with the last letter of the STEM, eventually the callings of my students to me, either ma'am, either miss, or some other students of mine, because I have an advisory class in my grade 11. They call me mom or mame. So it feels weird na even though my interval of my age with them is a little bit ano lang, short kasi I'm just 23 and then some of my students are 16, 17, 18. So parang malapit lang yung ano namin, malapit lang yung age gap namin. So maybe that's the thing then when you are still a young teacher, no, na you get to eventually talk to them even though not always in the academic side. So eventually you are also tapping them and you get to know them more. Yeah, so that's the what do I do segment, being a STEM major educator, or yep, science enthusiast, teacher, entertainer, and the callings of my students. All right, so this is the last part of the segment of my talk. Why enter eventually in the field of STEM? First and foremost, it's the inspiration of my biology teacher when I was in second year high school. So yung part na yun na shout out to Sir Jojo even though he's not here in the talk. Yung hype niya, yung energy niya. So my students also know how high I am in teaching even though it's just a 7:30 class. Sabi ko, "Huy, ano na, kaya niyo pa ba? Laban lang." Yan. So I always tell that to them because I feel like they always need encouragement every time. So that's one, the inspiration of my biology teacher in the field of STEM or in the field of biology. That's why eventually I took up this degree. Second is in to be frankly, I was redirected with this course. So initially this was not also my initial course in mind, the education part of biology. I just eventually um I just applied in LaSalle before as a BS Bio student, but my grade or the grade in LaSalle didn't reach on that quota course. So eventually I was placed in the education side. So sige, sabi ko, okay, I'll just try to eventually go into this degree and then let's see what will happen in the next few years. Then eventually here I am surviving and striving and now teaching. Ayan po. And also, initially as well, I thought of going to the medical field, but I feel like it it has a need of more teachers here in the Philippines, especially in the field of STEM. So that's why I eventually pursued that line. And of course, the field of interest, which is until now I'm still in the limbo, which is in parasitology. So during my master's journey. Well, I'm still a student though, but then again, for this time around, I quote unquote stop because I'm working. So I need to balance things out. So I had a advanced parasitology subject under Doc Jane Flores. Hi, Doc. Ayan. So I got also inspired by her way of eventually teaching that subject, and to put it simply for my also the way that I also understand it. So kumbaga po may instances din na why I also entered in the field of STEM because of the influence of the teachers. So ganun po yung nangyari sa akin. It's like because they tap me, parang they always see a potential in me. So that's why okay, sige, let me pursue that even though it's hard. All right. So I think that's the gist of my talk for today. So thank you so much for listening, and that's a wrap. So if you have any questions or clarification, you can eventually message me in Facebook or email me or whatnot. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Mom Shen. Thank you so much for that, Shenny. Um, you know, I've been one of Shenny's teachers, and I think one of the things I just have to say is having had the pleasure of having her in a classroom, ewan ko, hindi ko nakita yung sinabi niya na hindi siya magaling na student. Because for me, she is such a pleasure to have been in the classroom because you see her passion, you see her interest, you see her genuine care for her classmates also. And I think having someone like that in a class really inspires teachers also to teach better, to teach more. So, yun, Shen, you're an amazing student, and I love how you work hard for the passions that you have. So that's why I wanted to have you here because you are such an inspiration. And guys, you should check out her music channel because when she sings, it really brings light to your life. And I don't know if you see it, but did you know that she recently had a Disney movie? This is Mirabelle from Encanto. And she looks very, very similar to her, doesn't she? And I think a lot of her students was able to see that also. So, wag mo kaming kalimutan, Shen, nasa Disney ka na. But anyway, thank you for that, Shen. Thank you so much for that inspiring segment. We'll see more of you later during the Q&A. So from science education, we now go to the field of environmental science and management with Miss Karen Camille Perez. So we usually call her Karen. She is a university research associate under the Department of Science and Technology's Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic, and Natural Resources Research and Development, or DOSTP CARD, and is affiliated with the Center for Natural Sciences and Environmental Research and the Brother Alfred Shields Marine Research Center, or SHORE, in De La Salle University. Karen is currently a part of the Molecular Ecology and Technology Research Team, or the MOL Ecotech team, where she works on a diverse topics in aquaculture, from applying molecular techniques in understanding the adaptation of mangrove crabs to the role of women in our fisheries industry. She has worked from ridge to reef in research topics involving coffee, corals, and soon even jellyfish. She is also currently a part time instructor at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Karen earned her bachelor's degree in biology at the De La Salle University and is now taking up Master of Science in Environmental Science and Ecosystem Management under the same university. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Karen.
And let me share my screen. Ayan. Hold on. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Yes po.
Hi, so again, good morning, guys, and I hope everyone is still doing okay. As what Dr. Jonna has mentioned, I'm one of her research associates actually, and also an MS student in the La Salle University. So for today, what I want to share with you is how I ended up being a researcher and an MS student. So it all started in December of 2014 when I went to Dr. Carmen Lagman's office to submit a requirement, I think. And then we ended up talking about her projects. And she kind of explained to me how yung purpose behind the projects that she's doing. And after she told me, I asked her, do you need help in one of those projects? Because if yes, I would gladly help out in any way that I can. Unfortunately, she didn't have any positions available at the time, but she said that if I wanted to, I could still join them. And however, I wouldn't be paid for it. Back then, I didn't even know that you get paid for it, but I still said yes. And that was again in December 2014, and by January 2015, I was a researcher. So that's how my journey began. And then, so the first species that I've ever worked with was coffee. Dr. Lagman had a USAID funded project where her aim was to bring awareness to the varieties of coffee that we have. So for the first 3 months, all I did was to like mount or paste dried coffee specimens like this one onto an herbarium sheet, and then yeah, so that's what I did day in and day out for 3 months basically. The good thing was Dr. Lugman actually found a way to pay me after this, which was really nice. And I'm not gonna lie, it's really helpful and motivating. So thank you for that. But then came my first ever field work. So it was in Davao, and we were supposed to get fresh coffee samples from the different locations there. We went and toured the coffee plantation of Nestle, and then in the Transfiguration Monastery farm in Bukidnon. So they're famous for their monk's blend. So if you guys wanna taste or if you guys are a coffee aficionado, I would recommend that one because it's sweet to taste even without sugar. Anyway, but one memorable destination was the Dizon farm in Mount Apo, because to get there, we had to ride habal-habal. So imagine, this is my first ever field work, and imagine three researchers and a driver in one motorcycle. So pakyat pa lang kami, challenge na. So imagine us going down Mount Apo with like an ice chest of soil samples and fresh coffee leaves samples. Um, And that was what got me thinking now, what did I ever get myself into? But still, this experience was very enlightening for me. I didn't think that I could do the things I did there, but I made it through anyway. So yeah, and it showed me a different side of being a researcher. So it's not purely lab based, because that's what I thought before, puro lab lang sila. But the researcher also had to like get their own samples. So they go to fieldwork. So that was new for me, and again, hindi ko na malaya na kaya ko palang gawin yung mga like yung mga mabibigat na load when it comes to fieldwork, but I did. So I truly enjoyed that experience, and it was kind of a stepping stone for me to become serious really in this field. So yeah, so after doing the coffee project, I was then asked to join the retrieval and processing operation of the ARMS, or the Autonomous Reef Monitoring System. This was organized actually by both international and local institutions like DLSU, UPMSI, BNR, USAID, and NOAA, and so on. So in 2015, after 3 years of this being deployed underwater, they had to retrieve these arms and then analyze what organisms are present. So arms is like a gauge of how healthy or how diverse a certain area is. And this experience actually taught me a great deal. So this is what the arms look like when they're out of the water. Okay, so these people are like PhD students or like graduates or big time researchers. So and here I was still not done with college. I was still in undergrad at that time. And they're pros in anything marine. And I didn't know literally anything. So it was really intimidating for me at the start, but they created an atmosphere that is easy for me to jump into. And they're very serious when they need to be, but they know how to relax and take it easy. So little by little, this is the team that went for the retrieval. So little by little, I realized that uh, I learned how to socialize. And really, because the people who know me know that I'm not a social person. But in this time, I learned how to socialize and really interact with them. And until now, most of us are still friends and, talking to each other. I realized that I came in knowing nothing but about marine life, but I ended up learning and being aware of so much more after. So you don't have to go in thinking that you have to know everything, but you just have to be willing to learn and just let others guide you. So after arms naman, this is the project I am directly involved in, and it involves mangrove crabs, or sila serata, or what we know as alimango. So this is a two-phaser project. The first phase, it was headed by Dr. Lagman, and this particular study was because of the farmers' problem, where when a crab molts, they're often eaten by other crabs. So there's cannibalism involved. So the idea was to find the most suitable environmental parameters so that the crabs can ideally molt almost exactly at the same time, so that it will greatly reduce yung mortality rate ng juvenile crabs among them. Besides looking at the molting rate, I also checked yung color intensity sa swimming legs nila. So this one. This may tell us what stage they're in, like if they're ready to molt or if they just molted. And then based on my observations through the colors, I will then extract RNA and use RT-PCR to check if what I've observed was correct. So again, before I went into this, I had no knowledge about mangrove crabs. So this is where the Southeast Asian Fisheries Development Center, or CFDEC, comes in. I went to Iloilo CFDEC to attend a workshop that tells us how to rear crabs from the early stages until it's time for them to be harvested and sold to market. So most of the attendees there were either farmers or businessmen. So I was the youngest and the only one doing research. Again, an intimidating environment, but all of them were very accommodating, and they freely told me how they do things in their own farms. So really, everything I learned from them, I applied to this research that I did. And I'm really thankful that I get to experience like hands-on activities, because it makes me confident that I know what I'm talking about now. So that's phase one. Phase two is what we're currently doing. So this time, the project is headed by Dr. Chona. So this is an exciting project because there's technology involved. It's called Crabify. It's a free mobile application that lets the user identify the species of the mangrove crab instantaneously. But why is it so important to differentiate the crabs? So here in the Philippines, there are three sila species. So Serrata, Olivacea, and Canquibarica. But only one is the preferred, which is Serrata. So this alimango that we see, this is the alimango that we see in the markets or restaurants that are so expensive. So with the help of Crabify, farmers can already separate each crab based on their species. They can get the preferred species from the start, from the get-go, and those are the only ones that they will have to take care of, or the ones they'll have to rear. So which helps them greatly to save resources, time, and effort. We actually tested the app in different regions like Pangasinan, Samar, Lanao del Norte. When we showed it to them, to the farmers, they're actually happy and welcoming with the idea. But at the same time, of course, may mga inputs din sila na pinakita sa amin because they know what they're talking about. So sila yung first hand na nakakahawak sa crab, so they know how to differentiate it even if without the app. So again, they gave us input on what we needed to add and work on with the app. So every region we go to, they usually have different practices on how to sort crabs, and each time we end up having more insight and more plans on how to improve the Crabify. So that's the phase two of the mangrove crab, and hopefully you can actually um, keep this project going for a little bit longer. So, but yeah, I think this is something that's really positive when researchers get to meet the people. Um, they've been mangrove crab farmers for decades or even generations. So whatever they're doing, their traditional practices, it works for them, and therefore they should be our guide when we try to develop something new. So it's like modern science meets traditional practice or culture. So we're incorporating these traditional practices into more modern technology. So the traditional knowledge is still there, but it just comes in a different packaging, more shiny packaging. So this made me think more seriously about the impact that modern science leave not only to the people but to the environment and the organisms as well. So we're definitely heading to a more advanced time. But what does it mean for the people and the environment? This line of thinking actually is one of the reasons why I got into my master's program, which is environmental science and ecosystem management. Lastly, one of the things we're doing is also not doing we're not handling any more organisms, but we're tackling major pollution problems. So one of the things we're doing is what's known as eco squad goals, where we bring awareness to the public to the plastic waste problem here in the Philippines. We first did this with senior high and undergrad students back in 2020 to gauge the rise in plastic waste due to the pandemic. It was also a way to bring citizen science to the forefront. And in their own way, these kids, teenagers, are becoming aware of the problems and, are thinking of solutions to solve it. Now the Eco Squad goals is being deployed in the city of Pasig, where the nearby neighborhoods are doing their part to bring awareness to the increasing plastic waste pollution. Again, we started with teenagers, but now it's being adopted by LGUs who, have the power to bring this more to light and to more heights. Small acts, but still it pays off little by little. And that is also why I'm pursuing this field. I may need a lot of guidance and mentoring, but in the end, I just want to do something that helps the people and the environment, however small that may be. I didn't imagine myself becoming a scientist or a researcher when I was an undergrad. I just wanted to volunteer because I had a lot of free time. But once I started down this path, I just don't want to get out now. So, from coffee to corals to crabs, hindi ka mauubusan ng pag-aaralan when you go into this field. And I believe I have something more to offer. So just you wait, guys. Yeah, okay. So that's it. Before I end my presentation, I just want to say thank you for inviting me, and I hope that by sharing some of my journey that I got to inspire the audience to be a part of the scientific world, that you may want to join us in the future, even if it's challenging at times or most of the time, but it's really rewarding in the end. So yeah, thank you again, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Karen. Sorry, I'm a little choked up because I was there for a lot of that journey, and I'm so when she said she was a shy little girl, she was so quiet as an undergrad, and seeing how eloquent she is now, being able to talk about all the things that we're doing in the lab. I'm so proud. It's amazing. And I love that what drives her is that genuine spirit of service, how we connect science to the people. And of course, as a team, we're a group of nerds. I think we love using all of these amazing high-end techniques. But at the heart of what we are as a team is always the question, how do we bring this technology to the people? And right now, I'm very confident that maybe, I can retire tomorrow and Karen will do an amazing job. Karen, Hillary, Kenneth, this team, you're the best. And then Jovi's here also and Joel, I think. So the team, the research is in good hands, and I'm so happy and so excited. Oh, and I'm so excited to hear about your questions later during the Q&A, Karen. So now we've heard from some of the amazing young people, young women in STEM. And I think we can all agree that the future of STEM is bright. But now let's hear from some of our more seasoned scientists and researchers. How did they get in the field? And more importantly, why did they stay? Why is it worth it to stay in the field of STEM? So for our next speaker for this morning, we have Dr. May Lim. May is a professor at the National Institute of Physics, University of the Philippines, Diliman. Together with her research team called CX Team, she explores various ways of using empirical data to understand complex systems. Without further ado, I give the floor to May.
All right, thanks, Shauna. Uh, Briefly, I've introduced May Lim. I work with the CX team. It's a team inside the instrumentation physics lab at NIP in UP Diliman. And so let me go right to it. Everyone talked about why they went into STEM, and probably I have the same answer as everyone who's going into STEM. And for me, it's to be able to keep asking questions. When I started as a kid, I love asking questions, and it has never stopped. And being in the academia actually allows me to keep, to direct what questions I want to answer, and exert effort into figuring out the answers myself, if the answer is still not there. I enjoy learning, and of course, I want to pay it forward. The world of science revolves around people. It's not just about equipment. It's not just about individuals. And so you learn a lot of things. You learn every day. You learn from your students, and as well, I also learned a lot from my mentors, and I still have mentors even up to now. And the other reason, probably the last reason I'm actually giving this talk. I've had a lot of hesitation accepting talks like this because I am shy in terms of talking about why I do this or that. It's actually to encourage more people to go into science, and preferably physics. Nudge that you go into physics. And this is my team through the years. So when I came back from my postdoc, the one you're seeing in the upper left corners, when I started out, and I think I may have missed some pictures, but the latest one on the lower right would be the Microsoft Teams version, because we're all doing remote work right now. So get on to it. How did I get into physics? And the story of what's the typical story of people going into physics? And probably one commonality is, at some point you like math. And it's not because you're really good at it, or many are actually good at it, but you really love doing math. And you would maybe join contests, and with varying degrees of success. I remember joining a bunch of those quiz bees, and I really didn't do very well with all those fast-paced questions. I did better with problem solving type questions, but the main idea is many of us came from a math background perspective, and at some point you might have entertained going into one of the more traditional fields because that's what your parents or what your relatives are telling you. You should go into med or be a lawyer or be an engineer. And in my case, one of the most eventful talks, in fact, was actually when in my time, it's during your fourth year, around the first month of classes where you're supposed to fill up the UCAT form. And around that time, the Bernido couple were actually in PAASE giving their career talk for physics. And it was a very, very inspiring talk that they gave. So it's like, oh yeah, I remember they were talking about, why you should go into physics. And in the face of a lot of uncertainty, you don't know what course really to check. It's like, I don't know. Do I have to decide now? It's like they were saying, if you want to delve into a subject where you go from the smallest object to the largest object, and you employ a variety of tools, and you want to learn a lot, you go into physics and say, hey, that sounds like what I want to do. Okay, check physics. And then second choice, okay, let me check applied physics. And then and from there, it's like there's no turning back. You just keep moving forward. You go, take your advanced degree, and then actually came back eventually joining the ranks of the faculty members at NIP. So currently, I'm heading the complex systems team at the National Institute of Physics. So what we like to do is actually to build models. So we run a lot of simulations. But the thing with simulations is that if you can generate practically anything with a simulation. But what you really need to do is a way to validate them, and that's why you need data. You need some data to validate the model, or sometimes for you to be inspired to create the model itself. And one of the things I like doing, and I hope my students have also liked doing, is to study the interplay of entity actions and the system of interest. So the system of interest could be anything, things like even your election, your traffic. The the more complicated, the more complex it looks like, the better. And the approach is not to build in so much complexity into it or make it complicated, but to try to figure out what are the important things that matter. What are the triggers that would change the system from going it from one state to another? Shown on the left here is actually a figure, our cluster. We actually built one in the lab. This was Shed funded through Shed funding, and it's actually was fun building it. It's like you order the parts and you assemble them and you teach your students. This is how to crimp it, to crimp the cables. Okay, let's do it. Uh, and maybe I could talk about it later on in the Q&A. What are difficulties that you might have working with the current procurement system and stuff in the Philippines. But there are ways around it, and there are ways to figure out how to do things. So let me just go through quickly. What are the stuff? What do you mean by a complex system? So for example, we would try to look at things like, how do you evaluate access to schools? Just using the data from school location and enrollment. So we've done that. Or if you get the data, let's say, from one of the studies that was commissioned by DOTR, is there something more that you could get out of it? For example, if you have the information on where people board or light and where the people who were interviewed say they came from, you can essentially do things like figure out where the transport hubs are. And therefore, you could address questions like, hey, are there ways to improve these things? Or are there ways that we should, maybe those are not good transport hubs, and therefore you might have to institute new routes and so on and so forth. And the fun part about, playing with things is that you can also create, small things like, okay, let me model behavior, like when do people stop? When do vehicles stop? How do they affect the flow of traffic, for example, and make sure you adapt it into the Philippine context. Okay, so this can be done, and this is random stuff that how I like actually working on this. This was a proof of concept work done way back, which is, can you gauge the difficulty of moving around? I think it's as simple as this is actually a map of where the NIP is. That's on that's the letter E. It's actually, I think, my office there. So E, and coming from a mall across the street, how difficult was it in terms of actually walking? So in here, actually, I was illustrating how by going from one air-conditioned place and then crossing the street, it's actually a very short segment if it were done properly. You can illustrate how hard it is, and probably influence people to say, people to realize why it's not because people don't want to walk, because it's made really hard to walk. And so one could work on those things. We've even done using those sets of sensors. It's like, what does the typical commuter experience look like? By measuring things like acceleration. Just someone would just bring a phone and an IoT device sensor that measures acceleration, temperature, and relative humidity, and say, okay, combine all this and turn it into the commuter experience, and it will be actually illustrative as to why there really is a lot of room for improvement in making things better for people to move around. Okay, and I think I should end here. I'd be happy to address questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, May. I never knew what the role of physics in all of those things. And honestly, physics intimidates me, but hearing it from you, it sounds super, super exciting. And just, remembering my UP days, walking around campus. Yes, ang hirap. Imagine coming from the MBB building, tas math yung susunod naming subject, tas walang talkie jeep. Tatakbuhin mo yun. So I'm glad someone is assessing the difficulty of moving around in UP. And I think in DLSU, although our campus is tiny, our buildings are tall. So some of the problems of our students are like moving from the 17th floor of one building to the 6th floor of another without the use of an elevator. So I think that's a gigantic cardiovascular activity. But yeah, that might be something we could do. Thank you, May.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we'd love to hear
Thank
more from you later during the Q&A. Okay, now we move forward to our next speaker from physics to science education once again. Our next speaker is Dr. Cheryl Lynn Monterola. She is a professor at the University of the Philippines Diliman College of Education. She is a director of the UP National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development, or UP NISMED, and the founding executive director of the Center for Integrated STEM Education, or System Incorporated. She is passionate about advancing STEM education through teacher capacity building, development of learning resources, curricular innovations, partnerships among government, industry, education sectors, and research. Dr. Sher is one of the leaders of the Education Futures program at the Office of the Secretary, Department of Education. She collaborates with ILO Philippine Country Office for its Women in STEM Workforce Readiness and Development Program and the ILO Malaysia Skills for Prosperity program for their project on the integration of STEM-related generic skills into TVET and skills training. In 2016, Dr. Sher was a visiting scholar at the National Institute of Education Singapore Office of Education Research. She holds a doctorate degree in physics education from the University of the Philippines Diliman. Without further ado, we have Dr. Sher.
Good morning, Doc Chana, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of the experience that I have as a STEM educator. And I'm glad that PAASE accepted me as a newly accepted full member of PAASE. And I'm just happy to share this panel with my mentor, teacher, Doc May. Doc May was very patient with me when I was taking a physics laboratory class in NIP. So thank you, Doc May, for that. So this morning, allow me to share the work that I've been doing regarding STEM readiness, our STEM workforce readiness and development. And just to share the opportunities and prospects in STEM skills training, leaning towards workforce development. So we have this collaboration with the ILO country office here in the Philippines, and it's an initiative that's funded by the Women in STEM Workforce Readiness and Development Program and the Skills for Prosperity Program of ILO. And it's called Learner-Centered STEM in Tibet. So just to also bring it to speed regarding the way TESDA is envisioning the direction of skills development, technical education skills development here in the Philippines, it's really to build the global competitiveness and workforce readiness of the Filipinos. And in line with that, the work that we're doing is really to connect STEM to TVET, or the Technical Vocational Education and Training. At first, probably you're wondering, is that an intuitive move, no, to connect STEM and TVET? So what we did was to actually start looking at different frameworks, looking at how STEM can be integrated in technical vocational education and training. We looked at frameworks from the US, like the Human Skills Matrix of MIT. We also look at the House of STEM framework of Australia, and even the UK framework, as you can see here. This framework is the technical level competency, general competency framework of UK, wherein they really placed mathematics in the general competency framework. So broadening the understanding of how numeracy is really related to workforce development. Of course, we cannot proceed without really looking at a very good model coming from Singapore, particularly the Skills Future Singapore, on the critical core skills. And looking at the different skills that you're seeing on the screen, intuitively, critical thinking, creative thinking, numeracy, of course, and other higher cognitive skills, they are intuitively connected to our field, which is STEM and STEM education. So what we did was to gently introduce how STEM can be integrated in technical vocational education and training here in the Philippines. One avenue that we found was really to show the alignment between STEM and that of the existing 21st century competencies of TESDA. And as you can see here, there are a lot of overlaps in terms of the 21st century skills like communication, critical thinking, problem solving, and the list goes on, and how they are, matched with what different STEM competencies. But what we also found out that the current framework that we have for TVET is somehow lacking in some aspect and would need, reinforcement on certain skills on our STEM competencies, such as transdisciplinary thinking or the ability to integrate from different fields, different perspectives, and be able to form a coherent understanding that can provide solution to some problems at the workplace or, let's say, in the business sector. Also, there's a need to look at systems thinking, the big picture thinking, being able to understand that being part of one system, you're still a valuable component of that, and such any disruption or any redundancy in one of the components would actually affect the entire operation of the system. Decision making is also considered as something that needs to be strengthened, and the understanding of numeracy as it applies in the workplace. So what we're doing to gently introduce the integration of STEM in technical vocational education and training is to also build the capacity of the curriculum writers and the trainers of TESTA. So we did several initiatives on this beginning in 2020. So we have already trained a lot, and just recently, and it's actually a continuing effort right now. We have a more intensive workshop focusing on learner-centered STEM in TVET, and we have a good core of TESTA trainers completing the said training. Just to share with you some of the things that we're doing to be able to actualize the integration of STEM in TVET, we actually prepared several trainers' guide, leveraging on what you call STEM-oriented activities in the context of different TVET training qualifications. So we had a trainer's guide for game programming, NC3, web development, contact center services, 3D animation, organic agri production, electrical installation and maintenance. So we had several of this, and these materials actually follow what you call the prescribed formats of TESDA, and they have what you call the competency-based curriculum and session plans, so that trainers who would be able to adopt all of this STEM-oriented TVET would really be able to understand the value of harnessing or the fostering the STEM competencies in their own training qualification. Part of this trainer's guide, we also prepared a counterpart, a student workbook. And these workbooks were actually digitized for some, printed for some, depending on the accessibility that affords the student. So for some of the workbook, we actually integrated them in the existing learning management system of some technical vocational institutions. But for some, we really need to print it out for flexible learning delivery because some of the hard to reach places need to have hard copy of the workbook. So just to also say that we're not doing this blindly. There's actually a research built around this effort that we have, or this intervention that we have in cooperation with ILO and TESTA. So we're looking at how the learner-centered STEM and TVET would affect cognitive skills, social-emotional skills, and the work skills. In general, the employability and productivity of the trainees involved. Also, we'd like to find out how to really fine-tune the intervention. So regarding the ease of implementation and some implications on training qualifications. So allow me to share some of the more recent results as we are in the rollout, and we're trying this out into different training qualifications. So this one is a snippet from the electrical installation and maintenance. And using those different measures that we have, we really saw a significant improvement in metacognitive awareness. And as you can see here, also the trainer attested that how STEM integration in their qualification of electrical installation and maintenance helped the students. And this was one of the also the a claim of the student from that training qualification. This was from cookery, and as you can see, it's not straightforward to say that STEM can be applied in cookery, but as you can see here, the trainer is saying that they need to demonstrate critical thinking, technology literacy, occupational health, and safety, some of the STEM competencies that are actually applicable in the context of cookery. Also, some of the claims of the students regarding how the STEM-oriented TVET impacted their understanding of their qualification. And we also measured significant improvement in grit, growth mindset, work skills, and emotional stability or resilience. For computer system servicing, we have another program in this, and I was just noting that prior to the intervention, trainees were not actually comparable in terms of resilience, conscientiousness, and reading skills for work with male students at an advantage. But after the intervention, trainees were already comparable in terms of resilience, conscientiousness, and reading skills for work, with female students getting slightly higher ratings than males. So what are the implications of this current result? So we've heard so much about metacognition, but I'd like to also emphasize that it contributes to the continued learning that professionals need to do if they are to grow and to keep pace with changes in demands of their work. Grit is more strongly related to self-employment for risk takers, females especially, and younger individuals. And also in terms of growth mindset, it's important to develop them because it moderates the effects of proactive personality on work engagement. And lastly, growth mindset and grit actually mediate the relationship between employment stress and well-being, which is of great concern for a lot of us. So really here, what I'm trying to say is that STEM can be a proxy acronym for skills and tools for employment. So through our intervention, to our initiative with ILO and TESTA, we're able to demonstrate how to really effectively integrate STEM in technical vocational education and training and yield results that will lead to employability and productivity of the trainees. So some of my other initiatives through NISMED and through the team in system. So we have the National STEM Bee with PAASE, DepEd and STEM Leadership Alliance, the integration of material science and 3D printing and basic ed with DOST Advanced Manufacturing Center, DepEd, and Doc Gobet Advincula, one of the board of directors of PAASE. And then we have the STEM and social-emotional learning for alternative learning system with UNICEF system and DepEd Bureau of Alternative Education. We have, we're shifting gears in terms of the work with ILO, but this time also touching on the integration of STEM in technical vocational livelihood, which is with DepEd, and then STEM career guidebook for DOST, SEI, and we have the Women in STEAM Careers webinar series with ILO, Australian Embassy of Manila, DepEd, and VTech. And I'm as mentioned earlier, I'm doing work with ILO Malaysia and University Malaya for the STEM integration in Tibet for construction and food processing. So I hope that I'm able to somehow share with you the passion that I have for STEM education and how in a lot of ways we can work on really building a culture of creativity for nation building. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Doc. Sure. Very, very, what struck me the most about your presentation is how, part of STEM and education is hard, but in order for us to actually make a solid difference, we need the data to back it up if our interventions are working. Hindi pwedeng utak lang, hindi pwedeng puso lang. Kailangan pareho. So thank you so much for that. And so we move finally to our last speaker for this morning before our much awaited panel discussion among our 6 panelists. For the field of environmental science and management, we have Dr. Ibilu Bandala Goya. She was a DOST scholar as she studied Bachelor in Secondary Education, majoring in Physics and Technology at the Philippine Normal University, and she graduated cum laude. She then took Master of Arts in Teaching Physics and Doctor of Philosophy in Environmental Studies at Technological University of the Philippines and Miriam College, respectively. She is currently taking up a diploma in Public Management at the University of the Philippines, the National Center for Public Administration and Governance, or UPNCPAC. Currently, she is the Vice President of the Philippine Institute of Environmental Planners for East Quadrant and also serves as monitor for PRC CPD webinars for environmental planners. She is also a member of the Technical Committee for DTI Bureau of Standards for Smart City. Her background in education led her to notable collaborations with the Department of Education and STI College, and currently, she teaches in the College of Science of Polytechnic University of the Philippines and De La Salle University, Manila. As an environmental planner, she has been working with projects under government agencies like the Department of Public Works and Highways, the Department of Transportation, and other projects funded by international organizations like the Asian Development Bank and Japan International Cooperation Agency. She has also been delivering lectures in various seminars on education, environmental sustainability, and city planning. So without further ado, we have Dr. Ivy.
Good morning, everyone. Here, I wasn't able to open it. Okay. Thank you for that very generous introduction, Doc Chona. And thank you for having me here in this event. And to those who are with us now, I hope you get to pick something from the discussion that you would actually use. Like the rest of our panelists and even the younger ones, I had always been interested in science when I was young, and but it's a kind of interest that I wasn't really planning on doing as part of my study, because I am more interested actually in social studies during my younger years. Okay, but the thing is, I kind of feel like I'm breaking some rules, some gender stereotypes, because I wasn't really into dolls and small dresses and fashions that you get to play with when you were young. I'm more into manipulatives, so like Lego, small stuff that I tend to put together. And it's only later already that I realized that it has something to do with gender biases with toys, with kids. So oftentimes we refer girls more into language and arts because they are given toys which enables them to explore that that aspect. So when you try to dress the dolls, mas lumalabas yung pagiging artistic mo, and then you converse among your dolls and things like that. So yun yung karaniwan sa batang babae. But as for myself, I tend to play with Transformers, with Lego, and put them together, which is common for the guy, and which leads me also to thinking, as I have also read, that's why boys are more into mathematics and logical thinking, because those were the toys provided to them also when they were young. Kaya as early as then, na-stereotype na rin yung mga bata into the kind of toys they use, and eventually what they will pursue later in life. But as for me, having developed that, it's only then that I realized that I somehow have an inclination to mathematics. But of course, unlike Doc Day, I wasn't really very good in math, kind of average only. So graduating as the US scholar in physics kind of overwhelming for me, because I wasn't really good in math. But then again, during my early years in teaching, what I really want is to simply be able to teach physics the easiest way possible and the most enjoyable way possible. Okay, that has always been my my advocacy in terms of teaching physics. So moving on to masters in physics. Okay, I continued having that. I remember my thesis in masters has something to do with fallacies, physics fallacies in movies, that I have to make my students watch a lot of movies, and then as trying to pick non-physics scenes, or rather scenes that doesn't abide the laws of physics. Okay. And since then, watching movies has been boring for me because I always tend to look at physics fallacies in almost every movies that I actually watch. So that side didn't do good for me in terms of watching movies. Especially, I like Marvels. Pero lagi ako nasisingitan nung part na this shouldn't be happening and this shouldn't happen this way. Okay. But then again, continuing, as I decide for my PhD, I was thinking, should I still pursue physics education? And then for whatever reason, I ended up taking environment because whenever I teach different science subject, there's always a part that deals with issues in the environment. Then I told myself, I want to pursue this. I want to know more about these issues. And then taking up environmental studies, it wasn't really what I expected. It is actually a combination of natural sciences and social sciences. The program itself is a combination of that. So I have classmates who are into different fields, and then it is only then that it opened my eyes into a lot of other possibilities as regards career in environment. And then pushing through with that, I took up the challenge of taking up the board exam for environmental planner. I wasn't sure yet what really is the role of an environmental planner. I just wanted to be part of it, okay, with everything that I have studied in my doctoral. And then luckily I passed. It was only then that I realized that it entails a lot of um, discipline. Actually, it's an interdisciplinary field, and I already have classmates who are into those fields, and they started asking me to join them in their line of work, and that paved the way into me being somehow able to prepare environmental impact assessment and having projects that are connected with different government agencies. So right now, we're about to finish the project in resettlement site in Cavite, and also we had this project in the as a tourism master plan for Camiguin, okay, where my part is more on the environmental impact assessment. Okay. The thing is, those experiences led me into other fields. Um, it is only then that I realized that there's really so much more. So I started talking or discussing about plastic pollution, okay, the SDGs on consumption and production. And then as broad as it is, I also became a part of the focus group discussion for ECOMOS about SDGs also, but this time pertaining to heritage site. My dissertation has something to do with environmental, social, and cultural impact of town fiesta. So that alone, I was able to actually put together those different sectors in one study, and which led me also to the kind of works I am having right now. And to earlier, Doc Shona introduced me as being part of College of Science of PUP, but I was just recently transferred to a new college, which is College of Architecture, Design, and Built Environment, where the environmental planning course is actually under. So PUP is one of those universities offering environmental planning, BS environmental planning course. And right now, it's gaining traction simply because of the different problems that we have as regards to our environment. But it also has something to do with administrative aspects, which another led me into taking up public management. Okay, what I really want to is to become a part of the policy making body, because it's my aim to have policies which are backed up by science. Okay, research-based policies. Sometimes it's so difficult to understand the situation, the rules, the policies given to us, and then we end up eventually the government or institutions taking it back because it wasn't actually a sound policy, because it's not based in science or in research. So it's what I'm trying to work on now, is eventually given the chance to be part, to have a seat at the table of becoming a policymaker. So which I believe should be science based. So
Yun. Thank you so much for that, Doc Ivy. I love how you shared your journey with us. 'Cause I remember when I was a bit younger, people would ask me, nag-MBB, nag-molecular biology ka na, bakit ka nag-ecology? Bakit ka nag-iiba ng field? And I think when it comes to STEM, there is no single way of going into STEM. You can specialize, you can diversify. Specializing is hard, diversifying is hard, but I think what's most important is what excites you. What 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 is it that you're passionate about, and that will bring you um to so much more adventures, the way Doc Ivy shared with us earlier. So now we are going to the most awaited part of this morning session, which is the panel Q&A. So our young STEM women or STEM girls were asked to prepare a few questions that they would love to ask our more seasoned STEM experts for today. So I would like to request all of our panelists, if you can, to turn on your cameras so that we can now proceed to our panel Q&A. So we will follow the same order as we had during the presentation. Nikki will be given the floor first to ask her question, um, and then followed by Shen, and then by Karen. And then if we have more time, we will go to several rounds of questions. Now, of course, our young students could address this question specifically to one panel, but of course, all of our panelists are encouraged to answer the question also. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. Starting with a question from Nikki. Go ahead.
Hello. This question is for Dr. Lim. My first question is, as a woman in STEM, specifically in physics, what advice would you give your younger self then?
It's an interesting question. Uh, uh, I guess the question is how much younger, but if you're referring to, sometime during your college years or even after that,
Yeah.
the answer probably is to be kinder. Okay, not just to be kinder to other people, but actually to be kinder to yourself. It's something that I think many graduate students go through. That you say, I need to do this, I have to finish this. You put a lot of pressure on yourself, and I would say, just relax a bit, and you there's time to go through all that. Yeah, everyone will understand eventually. Many graduate students put a lot of pressures on themselves, and it could become unhealthy. I mean, fortunately, if you have friends, you can rant to your friends, and then that's okay. But be kinder, I would suppose, is the first one. um the other advice I'd probably give, and I've given this to people younger than me afterwards, is that uh, consider, if you're, let's say, you're employed here in the Philippines and you're going on your postdoc, consider actually resigning. That would open opportunities for you afterwards. I mean, even if you have all the intention of coming back, for example, one thing I didn't know then was that if you wanted to come back and try to get advantage of the Balik Scientist program of the DOST, you shouldn't be employed here at all. You need to be actually, really based abroad, which you would have been had you gone on your postdoc. But if you were on leave here, you would not be eligible. So it's more of those practical, small nitty gritty things. Don't be shocked about that. Don't worry. There's a big demand for scientists in the Philippines. You will not be unemployed for long. Okay.
Thank you so much, Doc. We'll keep that in mind.
Yes, thank you, Doc May. Yes, and there is a lot of space for more scientists here in the Philippines. Doc Sher, do you have anything to add to that? What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say that things, if you don't understand a lot of things initially, that's okay, because there's time to, things to unfold, and you'll be able to see the connections among all of this. So that some of the things that you do would not, elicit right away, like opportunities for you, but it's a learning, no? It's the learning journey that's more important. So you connect the dots later on. So that's okay. So even with the struggles and some difficulties perhaps, so that's part of the journey. There should be another way of looking at it, a learning opportunity. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Doc Sher. Doc Ivy, advice that you would like to give to your younger self?
Be mindful of your curiosity. It will lead you into something you are curious about something, probably because you will actually be led into that path. So just sense yourself what really is for you. Listen to what you really feel, and it will lead you to that. There are times na parang sabi mo, I don't like this eh. This is not for me. But then there's something in you that keeps on telling you na, no, you're supposed to be here. So just listen to what you really feel, and then with that curiosity, it will lead you to what you really like. The thing is liking what you are doing, and of course gaining from it, and that would be nice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ivy. Very, very strong and powerful words from all of our speakers, as Mom Jocelyn Luyan has mentioned in the chat. So now let's move forward to another question from our young STEM students. Miss Shen, you may now ask your question.
Hi po, good morning again to all of you. This question is for Dr. po. Medyo nag-overlap po yung naisip kong questions there since you're also a science educator. I think all of you pala here are science educator, but let me ask these questions na. How many years are you in teaching? Is teaching your first choice or teaching in the field of science was your first choice? Ayan po. Those are some of my questions in mind. Thank you.
Uh, this coming June would be my 23rd year as a STEM educator. So in my third year, I came across third year high school. I came across this editorial, and saying that good teachers are needed by the Philippines. So when I applied for the UPCAT, I actually indicated secondary education, and I was keen on really taking physics as my major. So I was the lone major in physics in batch 1995 in UP College of Education. So that never wavered. Perhaps there were some challenges when I was taking physics, but um, I when I started teaching, then it became more evident that I'm really for it. So there would be some discouragement perhaps for some difficulties in physics when I was taking it, because I could not see how I was learning and the way I was being taught. There was some misalignment, but I get you don't blame your teachers, but you should learn how to navigate no those kinds of misalignments, and thus may igagaling pa no, the growth mindset in you should kick in. So yeah, so 23 years in teaching, and I'm still proud that I'm doing this. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Doc Sher. And since, as Shen mentioned, all of our seasoned STEM experts are also STEM educators, I think we'd also like to hear about your experiences as a teacher. How many years have you been teaching, and was teaching your first choice? Or if not, what led you to it? Maybe let's hear from Doc Ivy.
Actually, I've been teaching also, same as Doc Shen, for 23 years. Ever since started teaching already, but I taught at a private school back then. And for the greater portion of 20 years, I was actually teaching high school students. Okay, it wasn't really my first choice because I was more into social science. But then again, um, I was in this. I was given the opportunity to teach science because when I passed uh, Philippine Normal University, I was already in the track of social studies. But then again, we were called, a portion of us, accordingly, those who qualified for certain qualification, and we are asked to take a different exam given by the OST because my course was a pioneer course for the OST. I was a pioneer for Bachelor of Sciences, Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Physics and Technology. Okay, so that was the first year, and we were already in PNU when the scholarship was given. So luckily, I passed, and then halfway through college, it was only then that I realized that I like teaching, especially when I had the off-campus training that you get to converse with the kids and then give them knowledge that you know they will actually use. And then one thing more that I like as a teacher is that I get to gain more friends every year. Okay. Imagine the number of students you teach every year, and then after some time they actually become your friends, and they go into different fields also, and they also contribute to you. Okay, so that's also what I like about teaching. So hindi lang ikaw yung nagtuturo, hindi lang sila yung natututo, because at the same time you really learn a lot from them, okay, especially handling diverse types of students.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Doc Ivy. That truly is one of the most enriching things about being a teacher. Let's hear from May. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat from former students, and apparently Doc Sher is also a former student. So how long have you been teaching, and what led you to this vocation?
Yeah, so it's interesting. As Sher mentioned, she's in here for 23 years, and then I suddenly started computing how long have I been teaching, and it's 24 years this June. It's like, hey, I'm just 1 year ahead. But the thing is, the thing with teaching is, you're pretty much just ahead of your students probably by a day or two or a week or two in terms of preparation, and so. And by the way, I think Cher was in grad school at that time. So it's like, yeah, I was probably, newly minted in that course as well, teaching it for the first time. It's actually fun. Uh, so the question is, why teaching? Uh, because, for example, in UP, if you're going to go to grad school, being an instructor is an option to support your studies. So you get reduced fees and all that if you're an instructor, and it's actually fun. Yeah, when you're doing it for the first time, it's like, we used to call it, hey, I'm going to class. It's showtime, because you're gonna try a bunch of things that would this work, would this not work? You try your jokes. If they fall flat, it's like, okay, let me try something else the next time. And so it's actually a lot of fun. It's actually time consuming. Uh, in fact, some of our advisors would start telling us, oh, you're focusing too much on teaching. You should focus a bit more on your research. And so that happens as well. But it's fun. Teaching is fun. You learn a lot from the students. You learn a lot from your colleagues. You learn about what they've done and say, hey, let me try that as well. And you also tell them what you've done. And if if it's a success, there's a lot of camaraderie that you would experience being a teacher. So it's great. uh, yeah, so the thing is, as long as you're in the academe, chances are you would be teaching along with doing research, even if you like doing research a lot. It comes hand in hand. And as you get older, as you would see her here, she's already a director. It's like the other thing that would start creeping in is administrative work. But it happens. Teaching is the probably the most uh, well. Research gives you a lot of high. Teaching gives you a consistent high in terms of what you do. Okay.
Thank you for that, May. Oh my God. Yes, teaching can be addicting. Research is addicting. Teaching can be addicting too because yes, it really gives you so much opportunity for fulfillment, for meeting people, for networking, and especially for I've been hearing this consistently. A lot of our speakers this morning are introverts, yung medyo nahihiya. And ako din, kung wala tayo sa Zoom today, hindi po ako magsasalita kasi takot po ako sa tao. But I think teaching gives us that opportunity to have a platform to talk to people with a little less fear and a little less worry. So I love the opportunity that teaching gives to us. So thank you so much for that, May, Sher, and Ivy. Now let's hear from Miss Karen. Yes, Miss Karen. Her question for our panelists for this morning.
Good morning po ulit. This one is specifically po kay Doc Ivy Liu. Medyo mahaba po siya, so sorry po. And as a student kasi of NYSI, I took up environmental governance and ERA and EIA. So may mga times na may pros and cons when it comes to developing the environment, whether for like commercial use or for subdivision or industries like yung mining. If the cons or the risk to the environment outweighs the benefit, how do you properly convey these issues to the developer or yung company? And if the company does not care about these issues, how do you balance between what's right and wrong, especially if may mga policies and money na involved? So how do you deal or compromise with them so that all parties are satisfied po?
I like this kind of questions. Parang feeling ko pang Bucon questions type, diba? Parang wow. But anyway, as an environmental manager or planner, our main responsibility is more on the side of protecting the environment. So technically, we don't manage the environment, that's for me, because it is beyond our capacity as humans. What we manage is the impact of our activities on the environment. So if after all careful studies has been done and risk outweighs the benefits, there are three things that we can do. Of course, a no-go. Okay, tell the client that the project have more risk. If the client is leaning more towards profits than service, we can try to convert the risk in monetary value and make them realize that it would be a greater loss for them should they continue with the project. So identify future consequences that will put the project in greater loss in the future because of its possible negative impact to the environment. Then we could also provide alternatives, alternative project or alternative location or alternative activity, which could have the same could meet the same objective, okay, but with lesser risk and lesser negative impact. And then if both are not applicable talaga, provide sound mitigating measures, okay, for possible risk. Okay, so whatever risk is present, talagang lalagyan na lang natin ng mitigating risk. If the client insists on the project at the same location, ensure that you have considered or countered all risk with appropriate mitigating measures. That's the best we can do. But of course, pag masyado naman talagang obvious yung greater yung risk kesa sa benefits, we have to trust our government institutions to deal with that, and that they are also after the welfare of our environment, and they will not really allow it to happen.
Thank you for that, Doc
Thank you po.
Ivy. Yeah. And what I love about Karen's question is, at its heart is the challenge for science communication, which I think all of our senior scientists here have experienced. So let me just twist the question a little bit so that May and Cher can also answer. When during your research, meron kayong na-discover na alam nyong hindi magpapasaya sa mga managing bodies or administrative bodies? How do you think it would be best for us as scientists to communicate that kind of finding? Okay, so I think maybe we can hear from Dr. first. I mean, you've talked to us a lot about some recommendations for education. So, based on your experience, what is the best way for us to communicate these findings to a wider audience?
Thank you, Doc Chona, no, for that question. Regarding the work that we do, like communicating the results, no, again, it should always be a balance between what really happened, but a more valuable insight would be what can we do with that result. So what we try to do is to really like what we did, no, when we are talking to the audience of, let's say, policymakers. So we make sure that they get something out of it that would inform their policy making. But when we're talking to trainers, we talk about, how they can use the results for improving their teaching and so on. And then for different audience, you have to frame your your message such that you will really be attuned to them. So that's how we do it. But at the very core, you have to talk about, you always have to go back to your data. So that's why in the work that we do for the education interventions and any curricular innovations that we do, we always build a research around it, a pre and post measurement, so that it's a proof of concept that we are presenting, and what worked and what did not work, and how to move forward with regards to those learnings. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. What worked and what did not work? I love that kasi parang minsan may unnecessary expectation na pag sa science, tama lahat ng nadi-discover natin. But actually, science is a process of discovery. And sometimes what we create doesn't work. But at the end of it, we just work harder to find something that will. Now, in the field of physics, I'd like to hear how May and her team communicates a lot of these things, especially maraming technical details in physics. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one intimidated by it. So how do you communicate some information that you've discovered, especially those that may not be pleasant or positive to hear?
Good question. Good question. Thank you for that. Just say it. just blurt it out. I mean, there's no way to say otherwise. Uh, then if it's something that's, if it's too technical, you keep reducing the technicality. You use analogies, but there's really no way around just saying, okay, this is not good. Or I mean, in a lot of the works that we do, we don't encounter so much of that situation anyway. In fact, I'm trying to rack my brains on what I had to do, but I don't remember really off the top of my mind if I had to encounter to do something as dire as what Cher has to do. Really face these people and say you need to change this, and that. So in our case, I guess that's what the advantage of physics. We could just blurt it out, and it should stand on its own.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. At the end of it, what we're trying to say is just this is what we discovered. There's no bias in it. There's no agenda. Well, if anything, the agenda is to help make things better. And I hope that's really at the heart of what we do as people in the field of STEM. So I'm looking at the time, and I hope we can still give an opportunity for our audience to ask questions. So for now, I would like to ask the audience, if you have questions, kindly type it in the chat. But while we're waiting for your questions to come in, maybe we have some time for one more round of questions from our young panelists. So Nikki, I give the floor back to you if you have one more question for our expert scientists. Go on.
Um, okay. Hello again. This question is to all panelists. Yeah. Do you feel you have equal opportunities to men, especially in our field, STEM?
Ooh, I think that's at the heart of what this panel is about. So let's start with May again, I guess. May, go ahead. Mhm.
Okay, so I guess I can answer about, in physics. The answer is yes. The problem in the Philippines is not about equality; it's about not having enough. Really, we don't really have enough scientists to begin with. So it's like I need to attract more people from, those who are thinking, I don't know, I want to be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. I need to pull that person out and put them in, STEM, and really go into the research side. So yeah, I suppose the answer is yes, there would be equal opportunity. The problem we have is a bit more people moving out of the field early on.
Thank you for that, May. Share, maybe talk a little bit about your experience.
In our case, especially in STEM education, that's not actually a problem. Actually, it's more we are more advantaged in terms of our Filipino educators. We're actually encouraging other male educators to join us because it also helps to have these role models for our other students, because some studies on underachievement and underachieving males would be because they have less role models to look up to. So probably in the field of STEM education, especially at the basic ed level, we're encouraging more male educators to come and join us. Mhm.
Thank you, Doc Share. And Doc Ivy, how about in the field of environmental management and planning?
I don't see any concern for that because I feel like it's a level playing field for everybody. So especially on uh, making the EIA, there's a portion for God. So at least everybody is into it, and we know the uh, proper distribution of work, and even for hierarchy, the gender doesn't really matter. So I think we're fine with that.
Thank you for that, Doc Ivy. So it's nice to hear that in the field of STEM in the Philippines, where we don't really have a lot of struggle when it comes to equality, which is something that you don't see in the rest of the world. So a lot of our senior panelists have traveled overseas, and there you will see a greater gender disparity. But the thing is, in the Philippines, we are one of the top countries when it comes to gender equality in STEM. But sobrang kulang naman yung scientists within the Philippines. So even before we can expand and start influencing how STEM is in our neighboring countries, in ASEAN, and the rest of the world, kulang pa rin tayo. So we need more scientists in the field of STEM, and we have to continue having, women in the field of STEM as well. So thank you for that question, Nikki. Now, let's hear from Shen regarding her second question for this morning.
Hi po once again. So my other question is, what word or words or phrase would you describe or associate in the word science educator, science students, and also scientists? Thank you.
Ooh, thank you for that. Okay, let's hear from Sher.
I would say for science educator, growth mindset. Uh, and then for scientists, innovation. And then for science students, curiosity. Those are my words for those stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you for that. IB, what are the words that you connect with the terms that Shen has mentioned?
Science educators for me, school. Science students, curious also, like Ma'am Sher, and scientists, badly needed.
Nice. Badly needed. I love that. Thank you, Ivy. May, how about you? What are the words you associate with the term Shen has given?
Okay. When would you start? Scientist, science educator, and science student. So I guess scientist is baliktad na lang ako, curiosity and I guess leadership. Uh, Science educator is like teach. Sorry, it's such a cop out. And then science student is I think that describes all of us. So it's learning. It's like continued learning, and it applies to across the field, right? It works also for the science educator and the scientist.
Yeah, I love that. We are lifelong learners. I think that's what's amazing about being in the field of STEM is our ability to be lifelong learners. Pag wala na tayong pwedeng matutunan, ang boring na maging scientist. So habang meron pang mystery sa world, being a scientist is one of the best things you can be. Then for our last question from our young students, Karen, you can go ahead and share your last question.
Hi po. So for everyone, um, they say na mahirap gumawa ng career out of being a scientist. So what advice can you give to the youngsters to encourage them to pursue one of the fields of science? So if they are already pursuing a career as a scientist, what can you tell them so that they stay enlightened and passionate in their chosen field?
Nice. Okay. Doc Ivy, I'd love to hear what advice you can give to our young students so that they can stay in the field of STEM.
Actually, right now we are in the age where everything we can do is as productive as anything else. Okay, it's just depend on how you look at it. So anybody can actually do anything and be whoever they want to be. So what we may find preposterous at the moment may be groundbreaking in the future. So just keep on thinking, keep on innovating, keep on doing what you want, and by doing so, you will also want to improve. Okay, pagka lagi mong ginagawa yung gusto mo, minsan parang this is not enough, parang I've grown tired of this. So you keep on going to the next chapter and keep on improving yourself. So as you try to do that, basically that is science already. Keep on improving yourself, improving the things that you do. So some have their eureka moments and some have their failed experiments before coming to a conclusion. So we have different experiences and we have different circumstances. So try not to compare your being a scientist to others because we have different paces. So for me, at the end of the day, it all boils down to the essence of what we are doing, okay, and how the society will benefit from it.
Oh, thank you for that, Doc Ivy. Just keep doing what you're doing, and eventually, the positive things will follow. Okay, Doc May, I would love to hear your advice to our young STEM students so that they would stay in STEM.
Okay. Question again. Siguro, be well. I guess that's the first thing. Always be mindful of your wellness. And when I talk about wellness, it's just not physical and mental wellness. Financial wellness is also important. So it's like if someone tells you, you should go into STEM, you start competing also. It's like, okay, how am I going to support myself while I'm trying to engage in that field? If a professor tells you, hey, enter here, you should be, you should not hesitate to ask, how will I be supported? It's like, would I have funding and all that? What scholarships are available to me? How long would it be available? So all the aspects of wellness, keep that in mind. And I think it works for any other career as well. You just need to make sure all those things are in place.
Yeah, thank you for that, May. And one of the things that I'm hoping for in the future is that a lot of our young scientists or research associates, yung hindi na sila maghihintay ng 3 buwan bago sumahod kasi ang tagal dumating ng funding. Yung may possibility na mabigyan natin sila ng 13th month pay ng healthcare, na yung part-time faculty natin merong mas stable na support so that they don't have to worry about feeding their children, about worrying about their needs at home bago yung pag-aaral nila. Because you're right paano ka mag-aaral? Paano ka magiging curious kung wala kang kakainin? So I hope we can establish systems for better financial support for those who want to go into STEM. And Doc Sher, ang mga teachers sa Pilipinas, kawawa. Ano po ang bibigay nating advice sa kanila para hindi nila tayo iwan?
Nako, alam natin maraming issues sa teachers, and yung complaint is of course the yung mountain of paperwork involved. Pero siguro ako, I always talk about kahit sa teachers and even for students, no, yung tinatawag na adversity quotient. If you have a very high adversity quotient kasi that trumps your EQ and your IQ, di ba? Na parang regardless of difficult circumstances, you're able to turn them around. Parang you have to look at how you're learning from it, no? So, and then also, you don't expect doing something and then you expect immediate results, no? Yung parang may gainful, kaagad, parang merong benefit agad, no? Sometimes you do those things because you're learning a lot from them, no? Teachers are, especially in the basic education level, they do a lot of multitasking, and of course, they also have to worry about their family. But whenever I meet teachers naman, when we do trainings, no, parang there's always this joy coming from them. I think a part of the joy that sustains them is that when they see their students succeed, and when they hear the stories of, flourishing of their students also, even yung mga nasa alternative learning system natin, different walks of life, ganyan. Yung kahit yung tinatawag natin na minute increment lang or maliit lang, no, na change dun sa behavior, para possibly disposition or outlook in life. So parang yun na yung success mo rin eh. So that's siguro yung what fuels us is the joy, no, that we derive from teaching. So yeah, adversity quotient and flourishing mindset and the joy that you derive from doing what you do. No? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Doctor. Adversity quotient. I love how to put that in. And I hope that someday, pwede nating bawasan yung adversity na hinaharap ng ating mga STEM students here in the Philippines at ng ating mga educators. So now we give the floor to our audience to ask some questions. There's a lot of questions actually already in the chat, and we don't have much time, but one of our attendees wanted to open her mic. So I'd like to give the floor to Hannah Gavan so that she can ask her question to our panelists. Hannah, go ahead.
Apologies. I actually thought that I would be I would go last since there were already like a lot of questions in the chat. And some of my questions, I have three, but they're actually a bit specific. Yung first siguro is, what are your thoughts on I've noticed kasi that most of my batchmates who are taking STEM have decided to focus on policymaking and and public administration after graduating with their STEM degree. So because I feel like that makes sense then for them to go down that route. Yes, I feel, like even if that would mean less people in research and development, it would help then for them to go into government work since they understand struggles of STEM, of people in the STEM field. Yes. Sorry.
So I think Hannah would like to hear the opinion of our panelists about STEM students going into policy. Since IB has gone through that same path, what can you say about this ongoing trend among young scientists in the Philippines?
Actually, at the end of the day, everything we do in science will be translated into policy. Okay, it's actually kind of useless if you have this particular discovery, if you have this particular conclusion or generalization that would not be turned into policy. Okay, so it would be nice that we have these STEM students leading to that, because they themselves, when they try to review the policy, they know that it is actually research based, and they can comment on it, and then they have the at least the authority to look into it, having the background of science. It's so sad to see sometimes that we're really having these policies being handed to us without any proof of research, and it's just a waste of money. Okay, because at the end of the day, babawiin din nila yon. Tapos parang we've seen a lot of that that happened during these years, and it affected a lot of people. So it's also nice path to tread eventually kasi kailangan din natin ng mga taong may sound scientific background into creating policies.
Okay, thank you for that, Doc IB. Anything to add, May?
I guess my answer to that is by all means go ahead, but the more people who go into government, the later, after they get their MS, maybe, or after their PhD, maybe after their MS, baka masyado matagal yung PhD. That's better. Having people in government who can read through your reports and who do not just say, let me just look at the executive summary, but actually looks at it and say, hey, I have questions for you. That's great. So our challenge would actually be to get more people into science rather than say, okay, let's curtail, how many people are going in here. Let's put in more input so that we have more people to spread around.
Thank you for that, May. And sure, anything you'd like to add?
I have similar thoughts, no. Actually, those STEM graduates going into policy, they're not a lost cause, no. They're actually a welcome or valuable addition to the policymaking body. We need more evidence-based thinkers, data-driven, decision makers. So we need them. We need them. It's a welcome addition to the policymaking field. Thank you po.
Thank you, Doctor. And it's already 10 a.m., but let's end maybe with one question for the young ones. Where do you see yourself in 10 years, career-wise? I think all of us older members of the panel would love to hear your vision. Kala niya walang tatanong sa inyo, no? Hindi, kasama din kayo dito. Okay, let's start with the youngest, Nikki. In 10 years, where do you see yourself?
Hello. Okay. I think 10 years from now, I think I'll be studying PhD. That's it. Or I'll be taking up in law school, something like that.
Lifelong learning.
Yeah.
Studying. I love that. Okay. Shen, how about you? 10 years from now, where would you be?
It's a little bit hard to visual to take into a vision right now since well, a teacher is a lifelong learner eventually. Siguro, I'm still teaching, doing research, especially in kasi I forgot to tell in my talk a while ago that that's why I also pursued the field of STEM is I want to help my community in my province in Pinloy, Batangas. So since they are focusing more in the choral, so sabi ko, sige, paano medyo ibahin natin ng konti? What if we introduce a new thing which is parasitology? Because I'm trying to search some studies regarding to it, but I cannot seem to see and that field in our province. So, nasa ibang lugar ng Batangas yung meron. So, what if meron na pala sa province namin and we didn't know? So, I think that aspect then I want to eventually help our community. So, I think that's what I want to visualize myself in the next 10 years of my life. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Thank you, Shen. What a heart for service. And then finally, Karen, 10 years from now, nagfi-field work pa rin ba tayo? Joke lang. Where
Madami
do
po
you
kong
see yourself?
gusto gawin in 10 years. Pero sana may PhD na by that time. And then, yun nga, na-excite ako sa field work, sa mga lab work, sa mga projects. So hopefully I'm still doing that. But at the same time, I want to do more of environmental planning like Doc Ivy do. Kaya po ganun yung questions ko kanina. So I want to be licensed din po. So hopefully by that time, kahit isa lang din sa tatlong binanggit ko meron. PhD, more field works and lab works, or maging licensed ako na for environmental planning. So, yun po.
Thank you so much for that, Karen. I mean, we aim for the stars and who knows where we'll land. So thank you so much to all of our panelists for this wonderful discussion. Napakasaya, nakakatuwa, nakakataba ng puso, na buhay ang STEM sa Pilipinas. But I guess one thing we can remember from this session is that as Filipinos, we need more scientists to foster a culture of innovation and development. And more women would help create the needed diversity in perspectives. So thank you so much to our wonderful women in STEM. I like to call you my sheroes. No, you're my female heroes for sharing with us your time, your experiences, and for empowering fellow women in STEM. It truly is amazing to get a glimpse of what it's like to be a Filipina in the field of STEM. And to our viewers, I hope you were able to learn something from our discussion for today. Now, for those of you who are a little bit bitten and would like to continue the discussion of the importance of women in the field of STEM, I hope you can join us on February 28th for the start of the 2022 UN International Day of Women and Girls in Science Diplomacy Workshop. So it the sorry the inauguration is on February 28th, 2022 at 2 p.m. There's a link and a QR code on the screen. This will also be live streamed. So in the event that the registration has already been closed, we will be posting links in the future on how to attend this. So that concludes our amazing webinar this morning. Ang dami ko pong natutunan. Maraming salamat po to our panelists for attending this morning's talk. Thank you so much to our audience, and I hope you can have a wonderful rest of the week. And thank you so much, and I hope to see you around in the future. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Oh, wait. Meron po akong
Thank you.
nakalimutan. Sorry. Ang pinaka-importanting part.
Picture.
Picture. Filipino nga pala tayo. Napaka-importante po niyan. So before I forget, for those of you who can, kindly turn on your cameras so we can do a quick photo opportunity.
Doc, my mom will join me.
Yes.
Here right now.
Hello po, tita. Thank you po sa panonood. Yung pong makakapag-camera on po tayo. Picture lang. Okay. So I think everyone who can turn their cameras on have it on already. Wait lang po. Paano ba to? Biglang wait lang. Paano ba mag-picture? Okay. Anyway, everyone kindly look at your cameras. In 3. Oh, ayan. May nag-on pa. Yay! Ayan. Hi, Glosh. Hi, Hannah. Jovi, hindi mag-on? Nagne-name drop na po ako. Marian. Okay, anyway, everyone, can you look at your cameras? 1. Oh, ayan, may nag-on pa. Thank you so much. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Oops, one more. 1, 2, 3, smile. Yan po. Thank you so much for attending this morning session. Happy holiday po.
Maraming po salamat.
Thank you
Thank
po.
you.
Mami. Mami talaga.
Thank you so much.
Kunti na lang pala. Magsaway na tayo eh.
Maraming po salamat ulit. Bye po.
Bye
Doc
po.
Janet, see you po on Monday.
Bye-bye.
See you Monday.
Ako, salamat po.
Thank you
Doc Ivy,
po.
maraming po salamat. At sa ating pong mga young
Thank you din po.
and Karen and Nick. Maraming po salamat. Bye-bye po.
Bye-bye
Happy
po.
long weekend.
Happy long
Thank
weekend po
you.
sa lahat.
Thank
See
you,
you later po, Dr.
everyone.
Chona.
See you later,
Thank you.
Karen. Susunduin na tayo ng van. Mag-field work pa po kami.
Ingat po.
Good luck. Have
Bye
fun.
po.
Bye-bye po.